Okay, let's talk about a very interesting subject tonight, and that is selling your rental property or keeping your rental property. This can also go for people that are looking at maybe they have to move to Chicago or Miami or some other place, and they're having this inner civil war, as I call it, like, well, should I sell it and then go to Chicago and rent for the next year or two to see how things are going to, wash out? Or should I go ahead and keep my property, have a management company, not necessarily management one, it can be, but it doesn't have to be, manage the property and then go and rent a property in Chicago. So I'm going to give you a couple different scenarios. Pretty interesting, when you look at it and really get into the weeds on something like this. So let's go to the next. And what we're going to do first here, okay, is we're just going to talk about simple single family homes. Okay, there's a lot of different things, but tonight we're just going to focus on a single family home here. So first of all, questions that you need to be asking before you call your real estate agent and say, sell this thing, is question number one is, what is your overall strategy for the rental property in this case? Okay, is it to buy and hold for retirement, or are you active in buying and flipping properties? That's the first question. The next thing is, are you looking to keep this thing long-term, or were you looking to sell it anyway within 2 years or less? Okay, and if you're looking at selling it anyway in 2 years and less, then that might be a different story. But if it's over 2 years, then, you want to look at what I'm sharing with you here. 3 is, have you recently made any major improvements to the rental property in the last couple of years, such as have you remodeled the kitchens or put in laminate floors, or done some excessive landscaping? And also, what is your interest rate on the rental property, on the loan you have now? Is it more than likely it's probably in the 3s if it's or 4s, especially probably in the 3s, maybe if you are living in the property. But if it's a rental property, you're probably maybe in the 4.5 range, which is an excellent, interest rate. So let's look at how this affects you financially in a couple different scenarios. The first one is you're going to sell it and just cash out, and the other, you're going to go ahead and keep your $500,000 rental property because almost any property in the IE or OC definitely is worth $500,000 a day or very close to it. So let's talk about, what does it cost you to sell your rental property? Well, first of all, you're going to have to pay a real estate commission, and that's probably going to be around 5%, right, Chrissy and Tyler? So you're looking at about $25,000 that you're going to lose right off the top. Next thing is closing costs. You can normally figure about 2%. So that's another $10,000 in just closing costs, on average. Next thing is repair the cost to sell it. Okay. If you want top dollar, you're going to probably be looking at, freshly paint. You may have to be doing some, flooring, some landscaping. So 15,000 is definitely not out of the question. If you want top dollar and you want to sell it quick. Vacancy, you're going to have 2 to 3 months by the time you decide to sell it. You get it fixed up, you get it sold, and you get it through escrow. Okay, figuring 2 months minimum, and it could be 3 months, if the interest rate would rise a little bit more. Then you got to look at capital gains tax. This is something people overlook all the time. I can remember back there years ago, I had this real estate investor. He sold it, and he goes, I can't believe I still had to pay income taxes because I had a gain. I go, yeah, because you have to recapture, some of the write-off you had all those years. But that's when properties weren't appreciating like they are now. But in this case, if you have a capital gains, a net gain of 200, okay, 20% long-term capital gain, that's anything over 1 year that you held the property, then you're looking at $40,000 that you'd be looking at. This is only on a rental property. If you're selling your own residence, you would not have that, providing you meet some criteria, which you probably would. Okay, so you can start to see the cost add up. So you're looking at about $97,000 to sell that property that you're going to lose in wealth just by selling the property itself. So a lot of times people never put pencil to paper. Okay, if people still use pencils today, which most don't. Okay, but I'm going back to old school. Okay. Show my age a little bit. But if you do, you can see very quickly, you're almost 100 grand, less wealthy than you were before you sold it. Okay. So now you also have to take consideration that you've been saving anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000 a year in tax savings because you've had that rental property. If you hadn't had that rental property, you would have been paying, let's say, an average of $3,000 more. So if you've held that property for 10 years, that's another $30,000. Okay. And so you really got to look at what you're going to be losing here, not just up front, but also on an ongoing basis, because you don't have that write-off anymore. Okay. So let's say you've decided to sell your rental property after you look at everything. And the next question is, when is the best time to sell it? And a lot of people say, well, let's just sell it now. The market looks like it's hot, so let's go now. Well, not so fast. Okay. If you follow the trends and data, okay, you can get what I call the most juice out of the market. Okay. By tracking, which we do a lot of, data as far as in the market. First of all, we track how many properties are on the market every month. We want to see, is that going up or is it going down? That's one thing. Next thing of it is, how many days are properties taken to sell? That's another key indicator, is how hot the market is, or maybe the market isn't as hot as we thought it was. Okay. Next thing is are they selling at asking price or above listed price, or have there been reductions since the property hit the market? Okay. That's another thing we got to look at. And this is something that Chrissy and Tyler, they track all the time. The other thing is, what's the appreciation rate, not year, but month to month? The last 2 years, we were looking at significant increases every single month as far as in appreciation. I mean, you figure 30% appreciation a year, which we've had the last 2 years in 2021. If you divide that, that's basically 2.5%, 3% a month, that the properties are going up in value. So we want to know, is that trend continuing, or now is it starting to drop to 1.5 or whatever it is? All right. Next thing of it is we want to know the interest rates. Are they stable? Are they going up? Or are they going down? Now, up until about 30 days ago, they were pretty, stable. In fact, they'd even reduced a little bit. Okay. And now they bump back up. So the thing of it is, how do you time yourself in the market? Well, first of all, you can't be greedy. You got to make certain that you're looking at the trend, but when that trend becomes really consistent, okay, that's when you don't want to pull the trigger when it starts to go back up at 4 or 5, but you want to hit it when it's still on the downside. And so these are things that we can help you with. And so it can be very scientific. Okay. And for an example, had you sold as soon as the market got hot 2 years ago on a $500,000 home, instead of waiting till like a month ago, you would have lost over $200,000 to $250,000 because you didn't time the market right. So this is where a great real estate agent and it can come in handy and really make you a lot more than you're ever going to pay them in real estate commissions. This is where they're really worth their value. And this is why you want to have a good ongoing relationship with your real estate agent, all the time. Okay. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. Okay. And then obviously this will tell us where the market is trending. So that's the first option. The other thing of it is the second scenario, as far as in keeping your rental property. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to even be a little bit more aggressive. Not only are you going to keep it, but basically we're going to do the opposite of what most people are doing. And that is, most people kind of hold, they don't want to move. In this case, especially with interest rates that they were very low 30 days ago, and the last 2 years was an excellent time, and rents were high. They were skyrocketing. So in this case, we're going to take your original property that you own of $500,000, and we're going to take a $200,000 loan against that property. Now, this is assuming that you have the equity, which you probably do because they've been appreciating so rapidly. And the banks will allow you, even on rental properties, a minimum, they'll do a 70% loan to value ratio. Okay, as far as on these properties. So let's say we take it out, and I know we could have taken it out at 2 and 3 a month or two ago, but I just want to be conservative. Take out a $200,000 loan on your current rental property at 5%, your loan payment would be about $1,073. So you say, well, how are we going to pay for that? Well, basically on the first property, we actually did this on the property I just showed you at the beginning of the presentation. We had the resident move out and we increased the rent $1,000 a month on that property. Okay. So that pretty well takes care of the payment on the $1,073, does it not?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Okay. So we increased 1,000. Okay. And so now we use a $200,000 loan as a down payment on the second property of another property for $500,000. So that's where we're at. So now we're buying the second property. Okay. On it, the payment on the new loan of $300,000 at 5%, including property taxes, insurance, about $2,350 and change. Okay. So that is going to be your payment. Okay. On the new property. All right. However, the second property, it's going to rent for $3,500. Okay. So on that, what you do by putting $175,000 down on the second property, you're going to have an outgo of a 23. So you actually end up in a positive cash flow situation here. And out of the $200,000 loan that we took on your first property, we're going to take $25,000 and drop it into your rental checking savings account. So that is your reserves to back up this venture you just went on. So basically what you've done here is you've kept your rental property that was worth $500,000. Okay. And let's say this was 2 years ago. Then you bought the second property for $500,000 and it still cash flows. Okay. And we have over $25,000 sitting in a rental checking savings account. And that's so you can sleep at night. Okay. So while you may not think you need it, we know that you need it. Okay. Why? Because we've lived it. We've lived it for almost 40 years. So we know, the market isn't always going to be, totally perfect. So we want to make sure you're taken care of. So had you done this, instead of selling your property, you kept your current rental property, you bought the second. Had you done this 2 years ago, both of those $500,000 houses would now be worth almost $800,000, or a gain of $600,000 in wealth in basically 2.5 years. If you compare this, had you sold 2 years ago, it would have cost you $97,000 to sell. So not only would you not have made the 600, you would have lost another almost 100 here. So it's a $700,000 gain in your wealth by keeping your rental property and buying just one more, and having reserves of $25,000, and it cash flows. You have no negative cash flow. So you can start to see very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes you have to do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. Okay. Just don't look at what the obvious is. Okay. Or listen to CNN or Fox or whoever, and everybody's trying to tell you, that you should sell because prices are going up, and my neighbor sold their house in 24 hours. Well, not so fast, for all the reasons that I talked about earlier. You could have left a lot of money on the table. And here's the deal. If you were going to sell within 2 years anyway, because you're retiring, or maybe you got to put your kids through school and that's why you bought the rental property, totally. It's a good time to do it, but you still want to work on your timing, with your real estate broker or agent, because they, as you saw here, it could be a $200,000 swing by not working with a broker that knows what they're doing. And you need to be working with a broker, ladies and gentlemen, that actually are in real estate. They own real estate. They're in the rental market. They're in the investment market, not somebody's just listed houses for sale. And even if it's your sister-in-law, your brother-in-law, your uncle, if they're not in that market, they could be costing you a lot of money because you're not working with somebody that's in the know on these types of ventures. Now, also in saying this, people that are in commercial, industrial, you could have done the same thing. I'm just showing you the scenario here on a simple single family home. Now, this link here, and this is going to be sent to you, but if you want to do a screenshot while we're talking here, you can do that. You can go, this is NARPA. This is a National Association of Realtors or Property Management here. And what they have on the site here is it allows you to go in and put in your numbers, very easily. Okay. Interest rate, everything. And then all you do is when you go to the home page, because since you're not a member in NARPM, you're not going to be able to get into a lot of these feeds up here. Go over here to community, click on community, and this is going to pop up. And you can see here on the person we put in here, if you rent out your property, you would have 192,000 more wealth in 5 years. Okay. And so it allows you to do it on it doesn't matter where you're at in the country. Okay. And this is by a very reputable company that works with Buildium. They've helped supply this, and in the property management industries, very well respected company. So take that and you can go ahead and you can do it tonight if you want. Okay. Depends on what coast you're on. If you're on the East Coast, it might be getting a little late. If you're in Hawaii, not so much, because we have people, believe it or not, on the call tonight, from Oregon to Miami to California to wherever and everywhere in between here. So, okay. So in summary, we have to look at the inflation that we know is running out of control. Now, the news and the White House would have you believe that it's only 9.1%. But if you take the things that you buy every day, it's closer to 15, 20%. And I don't have to tell you that. Okay. What did groceries cost you a year ago? And what does it cost you today? Some people say it's doubled. Okay. We know gasoline has doubled, right? Now it's came down a few pennies, and good for whoever's making that happen. But let's not get overly excited. Okay. Because there's a long ways to go with that. And this is what I call, it's a stealth tax, right? You don't even see it coming. And really what they need to do is say, we're going to raise your income tax by 20%. If they did that, it's the same thing as what they've done with inflation. This is the same thing. So instead of your tax bracket being 30%, now you're in a 50% bracket. Instead of 50, you're in a 70. Okay. So that should just, make your blood boil when that happens. Now, one of your best hedges to keep your wealth in inflationary times, as I put here, is real estate and other hard assets. And let me say this, we are not financial planners. We are not real estate attorneys. And you should not take this advice we're giving you tonight and construe it as fact. You need to check out, with your own, financial planner, et cetera. But hard assets could be gold. That's another hard asset. But if you look at that, okay, real estate normally will, in almost every case in the last 40 years, that I've been in this industry, it's kept pace with inflation. The only time that real estate really dropped through the floor was 2008, which we know was self-inflicted by Congress 10 years earlier in two different administrations, allowing people to buy homes that they didn't have to qualify for. It was called stated income, or what I call lying income. Okay. Because that's what people did. And then everybody jumped on the bandwagon, even the people that, weren't, less fortunate, people that were doing okay. Oh, instead of buying, 1-2 house, hey, I think I can buy a $2 million house. So they jumped on the bandwagon, and that's what created. But other than that, all we ever see in inflationary times, you might see a little bit of a dip of maybe 5-7%, may hold steady there for a year or two, and then it starts to take off again. But the good thing about real estate, you keep pace with inflation. What that means is you're not going to lose the purchasing of your wealth. So in these kind of times, step one is you want to preserve what you have. Step two, if you make the right investments, working with the right people, the right companies, then sometimes you can even make money in an inflationary market. Okay. But no doubt about it. People say, when's this going to end? Well, probably not anytime soon. Okay. And so we need to set ourselves up for this. This is why in your rents, that those of you who have properties with us, you see that we're increasing rents, $250 to $400 instead of raising it $100 a month on each lease renewal. Some places in the country are as high as $800. Okay. Because they're trying to get those rents up. So one thing is certain during inflationary times, okay, they still have to build more properties to take care of the demand. Because in 5 years from now, kids are 15, they're now 20. They need apartment to rent. And some of your kids need apartment to rent. Well, guess what? Because of all the restrictions they're putting on, okay, and now they're raising interest rates. So what does that do? Developers goes, well, I don't want to build now because I gotta pay more. And what has happened to building supplies? They're up like 39%. So now the cost to build a house costs 39% more than it did before. What's that going to do? It's going to force prices to go up. Okay. So prices and rents are going to continue to go up even during these inflationary times. Okay. And if you look back in the 1970s, you see what inflation has done as far as to people's wealth. Now, with all this said, I do believe that you should keep cash reserves on hand. Now, in the example that I just showed you, you also saw that we made certain that we put money in reserves for emergencies and other incidentals for that investor of $25,000. So what we do when we look at buying a property for you, okay, we just don't look at what it's going to cost to buy the property or what the down payment is, but we look at, okay, you're going to have to rehab the property. That's $10,000. You're going to have to go ahead and have so much in reserves. That's another $10,000 or $15,000 if it's on a smaller, less pricey property. But at the end of the day, that's got to be built in starting from the get-go, so you can take care of that rental property like you need to be taking care of it. And so if you take care of repairs and you do improvements to our property, you'll have residents stay in that property for not just years, but decades. But tell me not, panel, we have had people in our rental properties for as long as 29 years in the same house. Okay. Yeah. And we have a lot of residents been with us 5, 10, 15 years. They don't stay in there by accident. That's a strategy, okay, that we've created. And those owners put money in the property when they need to put it in, and they keep the properties looking good, and they do improvements even when the residents here haven't even asked for improvements. Okay, so if you're going to sell the property that you're, like I say, that you're living in, and you're going to rent a property during these times, it will definitely erode your wealth. First of all, you're going to be $97,000 less wealthy right out of the gate. Okay, but what else happens? Let me show you this, okay? People who have kept their property in cash since 2000 have lost, I should say, significant wealth in the last 20 years. Let me show you how much. If you had 100,000 in cash in 2000, it's now only worth 62,000 in purchasing power. So you've lost 38% of your wealth by keeping it under the mattress, so to speak, okay? This is why you have to go ahead and invest wisely. You don't overextend. You don't do more than you need to do, so to speak, but you definitely cannot just let it sit, because this is what happens, and if you had $1 million, now it's only worth 620,000. Look at the amount of wealth you're losing, and your kids are losing, and for to help them out. So if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your children, and their children, so you can build on this. And at Management One here, we have all the tools for you. And whether you use Management One and Chrissy and Tyler, that's not what's important. What's important here is that you move on it. If you do, the good thing about our firm is you have everything. We just did an interview with a gentleman a few days ago. He's been with us 5 years. And he said, once I found out what you guys really do, it was pretty much a no-brainer. I just had to make certain that it worked for me financially. I could afford the loan. I could do this and that. He says, but you guys did everything. You found the property, you negotiated it. You did all the repairs with your contractors at fixed maintenance pricing. And then in turn, you got it rented for more than I thought it would even rent for. And it rented very quickly. And now you're managing it, and I don't have to worry about it. So, and if you need a CPA, or you need a real estate attorney, or you need a lender, we have all those resources for you as well, including a financial planner as well, if indeed that's what you need. So, I hope this makes sense to everybody tonight, but, be careful of selling before you really take this to heart. And you will be getting a recording of this within 24 hours. So you can go back and watch the key elements of this again, as far as on your own or with your real estate agent or whoever you need to look at it with.